Hello, it's Katie. Today I'm going to be going through how to make these beautiful seed bead embroidery brooches. So these are all butterflies. So within each kit is a different colourway and you get these amazing sequins. So in this one I've used the sequins as edging. So you can see it edging there and the way that it reflects the light's absolutely beautiful, and you get this kind of scalloped edge. And in this one I've used one individually to kind of make the little head of the butterfly there too. So, and both kits come with size 11 seed beads and with the bugle beads, so you can use them to create lots of different designs. So I've used them in this one to create this kind of herringbone look for the body, and in this one I've used them because they're that amazing colour. They kind of give that little glint, and you can see the difference in the way the light reflects off them there. So, and also I'm going to be showing you how to use the backing, which is also available. So we've got the backing here and how to stitch it on and measure it up, and how to add the brooch pin too. So the one that I'm going to be showing you is this one here. So it's the butterfly in flight. So I'm going to be showing you how to create the shape, how to create this detail, this kind of 3D effect on the body, and add the sequin. And then I will also show you on this one, because you can see this one's not yet backed, I'm going to show you how to back it too. So for this we're going to be using the £10 fire line, which is also available as part of one of the kits, and that's in the black smoke colour. And I'm going to be using a tulip needle because these are really nice and flexible, and this is going to greatly aid you whilst you're seed bead embroidering. And it's a nice fine one. This is a size 12 one, but you can use any size, but the flexibility will help hugely. So I'm just going to move a few things out of the way and get my beads ready, and we will begin. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take your beading foundation. So this is the black fabric here. So this is going to give your piece that kind of strength, that it gives it, that it is still flexible, but it's also got that little bit of strength to it, and rather than just working straight onto something like this, which is really soft and beautiful, but you need the brooch to actually stay in form. So we're going to be using this. Now I've got some templates. I'm not sure whether those are going to be available, but I will try and make these available to you. So I'll try and either put them on my Facebook page or see if JM can put them on their Facebook page. So, and this is just a 1 centimetre grid, so you should be able to just print it out and use those templates yourself. So there's a few different designs on there. So what I do is, because I'm working on a black background and it's hard to see, normally if I'm using a white I would use just a general pencil. I tend to use a metallic pen because that works a little bit better. You could actually pin this to here and then cut around it, but I find it easier to cut without the actual form being on there. So you could take this right up to the edge and then just work this around it. Now it won't show up loads, but it'll show up enough for you to be able to cut if you're using a metallic pen. So this is just kind of one of those permanent marker metallic pens, and then just drawing all the way around until we get to the opposite side, like so. There we go. And you should be able to just see that form there, that shape. Okay, now you can see on here I've just kind of freehand drawn these extra pieces here just so I can see where I'm going. So what I would do at this point is just kind of just pop those marks in there too. So this line comes off this wing here, this middle wing, to the centre, and then this one comes more straight in like there. So then you'll be able to kind of follow those lines as well once you're actually beading. Okay, and to cut it out, all you're going to do is just use a general pair of scissors, any pair of scissors that can cut through this type of backing. So, and just cut this out, and then you'll have like so. So this, I did this one the opposite way around. It doesn't matter which way you decide to do it. You can always flip it over to work the other way. Okay, so then you're going to do the same with your ultra suede. So I would do all this beforehand, do the ultra suede and everything beforehand, because it's a lot harder to, especially if you end up losing your template, to actually cut it out if you're trying to pop this on and then try and draw around it, because the shape actually changes a little bit with the depth of the beads. So again, just pop this on, and for the ultra suede, because you can use it either way around, what I tend to do is, because it's a bit hard to draw on that, is I tend to use a kind of biro type pen, and that will give you a really nice line to draw upon, and then cut that out just the same. So as you can see here, I've got both of my shapes ready to go, so I can just pop this one to one side for a few moments, and then we're going to start working on this shape here, so we can see where we want our sequin, the head, to be, and we can see those lines that we want to be working on too. So I'm just going to get some beads out and then we'll begin. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to start working on the body part. So I'm just going to move these beads down just a little bit. So we're going to start working on making that three-dimensional body part, adding that sequin and putting a baseline in just across the top of the body, just so that we've got something to work towards. So for now, I've just got my black size 11 seed beads on and my galvanized gold size 11 seed beads, and I've chosen one of the sequins. So you can choose any colour you want, and it depends. I've kind of gone with a colour scheme here. You could go with like a total multicoloured piece. The colours do work amazingly together. This is a very similar one that's very similar colours, and the colours do work really well together, so you can see that there. And yeah, I've gone with this colourway, but if you were to just swap out sort of this colour that I'd use for one of the other bright colours, you could make lots of different combinations of this butterfly. So I think it's a great kit to really make diverse colourways, and in the sequins you get so many different colours. They are fantastic. You get lots and lots of different colours, and they've all got that beautiful metallic iridescence on them too. So I've gone with the kind of an orangey tone for this one. So what I'm going to do first of all is, remember this line that we put in here, this line down here, I'm going to create that as a baseline, because that's going to give me a nice edge to work against. So all I've done is I've got my tulip needle, and I've threaded some of the £10 fire line onto there. Now lengthwise, you just work with whatever is good for you. It doesn't really matter how many times you add your thread to this. Like we've said before, the back doesn't matter, because we've got all those workings on the back, and don't worry about that at all, because it's all going to get covered up. So you can add as many times. So at the bottom, what I tend to do is I just put the tail of my thread through twice, just to create a nice knot, and it's just a really basic overhand knot with the tail through twice for me. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to come up, just because there's that knot there, I'm going to come up in the middle, just to so that the tail is out of the way, and then I'm just going to take it through to the back. So I'm going to bring the needle up right at the very tip of this line that we created, so just pulling that through like so, and then I'm going to create that line. So my line's going to be black in this one. So what I want to do, I tend to kind of make a little pile of beads and just pass my needle through a few times, and I don't want a lot of beads on. There's probably about 7 or 8 there. Now if you're doing a straight line, that's fine, just going with 7 or 8, I would go with that. If you're doing anything that's got a curve on, probably just go with about 5 or 6 each time. So what you want to do is let your beads drop down, then push up with your needle. So I'm just drawing my needle down the thread, getting my thread on that line, and I know that is where I need to put my needle back through the fabric. So because I'm working on a beading mat, I can just pop my needle through there. So I've just popped my needle in, and I know it's in the right spot. So when I pick it up and the beads fall away, I know that it's not going to move. So I've got this part of the line there. Now I'm going to bring my needle up about the halfway point along those beads. So I've just brought my needle back up on that same line, but around the halfway point, and then I'm going to pop my needle into those beads, so in that halfway point, and travel through those beads in the direction that I'm wanting to continue in. So bringing those through, and what that it does is create a little anchor point in the middle of there, and stops it from kind of looping, and your beads are going to be set nicely against the fabric. So once again, just popping a few beads on. I tend not to count unless I'm going around corners and things. You can just kind of go by eye just don't go and add like the full length of here, just a few at a time, and then pop your needle in and through, and then pop your needle back up through around about the halfway point, and then through the remainder of the beads and pull through. Okay, so you're going to continue to create this nice line all the way down. Now don't worry if it's got a slight wiggle or two in it, because what we do is whenever we've popped a line in, we straighten it out by running thread through it, and I will show you that as we go along. So through the fabric and then back up through the middle, and that is the basis of almost all the beading that I've used for this type of seed bead embroidery. It's very basic techniques. It's the way that the patterns that you add the beads in that add the detail. So pulling this through, and then we need to kind of put in the correct amount there. So I'm just going to pop 4 beads on, and never just think, oh, that 4 will fit there and I'll just put my needle through. Just always drop them down towards your work and just make sure that they're fitting nicely. So that fits really nicely there, and then I can pop my needle through like so. And even though I've just added 4, I do want to make sure that I've anchored the middle of that down. So I'm still going to come up at that halfway point through there and come through the last 2 beads, because we don't want any loops that could catch on anything. So I'm going to take my thread through to the back again just to anchor that down, and then I'm going to bring it straight back through just where I just came. It won't come through in the exact same spot, so I'm just going to come back through just at the end there. And then what I do is, because I've created a straight line, but you can see it kind of wiggles a little bit, I'm going to run my thread all the way through. So this is kind of the key to getting the line straight, and even if it's not straight after one pass through, I tend to do it again and pass through, and the more straight lines of thread you pass through there, the straighter your line will become. So on all the kind of linings and turnings of the wings, this is what I've done to kind of smooth out any sort of kinks from where threads have attached. It just brings everything together and gives a really nice professional finish. So pulling that straight, and you can see there that is laying a lot straighter just by passing that thread through there. Okay, now I don't know whether you can notice there, we have left just a little bit because I'm going to bead around the front of there as well, just to create like a little barrier just to stop that sequin slipping. So just going to bead a few beads just around the front of here, so it's just kind of from here around to that front corner there. So I'm just going to nip a very tiny little bit off there just because that's a little bit more rounded now. So I'm going to add about 4 beads or 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to let those drop down. And what I want to do is I want to bring them around the corner. So I've let them drop down, but I'm bending my thread in the direction I want them to be. So it's created this little shape at the end here. So now I know where my beads are going to sit. I can, just like I did before, I can take my thread through. So I've stabbed through. And you will find it kind of catches on things. Now you can see there I've pulled that and it's kind of come in a little bit, but I want it to sit more towards the edge. So all I do is, remember when we came through halfway, I'm going to come through halfway again and right on the very edge of my material, and I'm going to anchor this side in at the right point where I want it. So I'm just going to bring that thread through, and then by coming through again those last few beads, so I'm going to go through the last 3 beads there, and then pulling this through. Just make sure you don't catch any of your wings. What that will do is it'll stop it from kind of going across, and it'll create that nice shape. Okay, so if you're wanting to shape anything, as long as you know you've got the right amount of beads to go around the edge, you can kind of make sure you pop in your needle through at the right spot. So you can come around a corner, pop your needle through at the right spot, and then your beads might kind of go across, but then you can shape it by adding lots of little anchors around a corner. So now we've got that first baseline in, and we've got our little turn around that corner. I'm just going to take my needle through to the back, and now I can add my sequin. So I'm going to add my sequin, so just a little pointer. When we're adding a sequin, what we want to do is, well, what we don't want to do is just add one piece of thread in one direction. So imagine just one piece of thread across from the hole to the edge, because that will allow the sequin to be able to, I'll just do that, to spin like so. So we're going to anchor this in a few different ways. So one of the anchors that we've already done is kind of, because we want this edge to sit underneath those seed beads, so we've kind of got it a little edge to sit in there. I want the whole of the sequin towards the front there, because I'm going to add a little bit of detail of kind of the face of the butterfly, where the eyes are and such. And I'm also going to add a thread in this direction. If I bring that up, so I'm going to add like a little V of thread, so I'm going to add a little bit of thread that way and a little bit of thread that way. So my thread is underneath at the moment, so what you need to do is find and come up through that hole, holding your sequin in place. Now I don't want to go straight, I want to go slightly to the side. It's not going straight, it's kind of going towards the edge. Now I want to do, come through there again, finding the whole of the sequin, and then I'm going to come through and I'm going to come over here. So that's going to give it a nice anchor and stop it from kind of trying to spin out. So that's another way of anchoring it into position, so we don't want it to move. So you can see there it's got that little V of thread in there. And now I'm going to add some extra beads just to kind of cover that thread up, and that's going to anchor it in even more so. So again, I'm going to find the whole of the sequin, and I'm going to add 2 size 11s, and then I'm going to come through and I'm going to go over the actual edge of the beading. So I've come over to this side, so I've come over there, and then that thread's going to sit in between there, and my 2 beads are going to sit on top of that, and I'm going to do that 3 times so that it kind of gives it a nice sort of insect type eye look. 2 seed beads, 2 seed beads, 2 seed beads, and they've kind of come over the top of the outer edge. So we're really making sure that this sequin can't really slip. It's still got a tiny bit of movement, but don't worry, we're also going to fix it in a little bit this side. So once you've come over there, what you can do is you can bring your thread back up through somewhere just to kind of anchor that, and then back through. So don't worry about any kind of random stitches on the front side, because we're using thread that disappears. It's absolutely fine. So now we're going to start working on the body part. So I'm going to come as close as I can. So I want to bring my needle up through this little section here, so I want it to kind of brace over the bottom of the sequin and anchor this in even more so. So I'm going to come up in this gap here. So my needle has just come up there. Can we see that there? Yeah. So needles come up there, and bring my thread through, and I'm going to add 6 of my gold, so or whichever colour you have chosen to use. So I'm going to add 6 of my size 11s, and then I'm going to bring my needle over to this side and come up as close as possible to the sequin at this side. So these beads are just going to lay over that edge like so. So that's kind of braced that in that way as well. So now, just so that I'm reducing the amount of thread that I'm using, I don't want to kind of come over and go to this side. I'm just going to come up next to where I've just added and through, and again 6 seed beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then back up to that baseline that we made. So we're just going to be adding lots of rows, as many as we can fit in, so right to the edge each time, and adding 6 beads each. So if you find your body for your butterfly is a little bit wider, make sure you go for a couple of extra beads. Just make sure you go for an even number, because we need that even number to create the 3D effect that we're going to make of that kind of line down the middle. Okay, so just keep adding rows of 6 all the way until we get down to the other end, and I will meet you back there in a few seconds. So I've worked my way all the way down to the bottom of the butterfly, adding my 6 beads each time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up at the last one that I added, so just coming up at the end of those beads. And then we're just going to add that kind of ridge, so it's got that kind of 3-dimensional look. So we're going to just come up through 3 seed beads, so that halfway point, and we're going to add an extra seed bead. So just picking up another one of your golds or an accent colour. If you prefer this kind of ridge to have a different colour, that's fine. And then come back down through the opposite 3 seed beads, and what that will do is it puts a little point in there, so you can see the difference in that one already just at the very end. So I'll just show you that again. So coming up at the end of one of your seed bead rows, come up through 3 of your seed beads, and then add an extra seed bead, and then come through down through the last 3 and out through the back again and again. You can see that shape already forming. So I'm just going to do that once more, and then we'll move on to making the actual butterfly, the actual wings. So up through 3 and add an extra seed bead and back down through 3. So that's why we work with a even number, because that gives you the ability to create that line centrally. So you can see the difference there. So these are all just laid flat, so these are all just the 6s, and then just adding that just gives you that kind of 3-dimensional look, and this is what it will end up looking like. You'll end up with that nice kind of ridge down the side of your butterfly. So the next part we're going to do is, I'm not going to finish this whole piece, so we're going to move on to the other one soon. So we've got our body in, we're going to pretend that we've finished all this all the way down, and the next part we're going to do is I want to line out all the wings. So I'm going to come up, so wherever your needle is closest, I'm going to come up to the end of one of the wings here, and I want to start lining this out. So just let me pull my thread through a little bit here. There we go. So I prefer to do all my lining out in black. If you look at butterflies, they tend to, if it is a butterfly that's got black colouring, the edges tend to be black. So, and then we're just going to do, remember that first line that we put in, so we're just going to add a few beads, let those drop down, and we're just following them. Remember them very faint lines that we put in. So this, you can see this one here, and there's one underneath here. So I'm just going to push my beads up, make sure I'm on that line, come through, and it's the exact same technique that we've already been using. So adding some beads, then come back through halfway, and you kind of know if you're in the right position if it makes the beads move a little bit, because that means that you're kind of bang in the middle, and then proceed through the last few beads so that you're in a position to add the next one. So all the way through, adding each time. So pushing those down and just creating that very slight curve to this, not much, just a little bit of a curve, and then coming through like so. So I'm just going to take this until we get to this corner, because we can see this wing's a separate one from this one. So I want quite a defined corner on this part here. So I want to be able to finish in the right spot. So I'm just going to add a few beads, let those lay down, see where they're laying. So I can see I need a couple more. So I'm going to add 2 more, let those lay down, and pop that through there. So I know I've got a nice solid end bead on there. So I'm just going to come up and through, just like we have been doing. Come up and through, like so. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue around here. I'm going to make a nice corner on here and then back down to here, and then that's one of my wings fully done. But I've made sure that I've ended this and not kind of continued this around and ended this on this point, because this is going to have a different starting point because it's a different wing. So I'm just going to finish off this edging, and then we're going to start showing you how to use the same technique that we've been doing and how I used it to fill in the wings. So I've just dropped back in just while I'm at this corner here, so we can see it's a really nice sharp corner is that one, so we don't really want a bend around the corner. So what I've done is I've taken my beads right to the edge, I've gone back and back through those last few beads, and I'm going to end that one there and then start a new one here. So I'm going to just start a new one in the opposite direction. Rather than my beads actually bending around that corner, it will give you a sharper kind of finish if our beads come back up in this direction. So just I just thought I'd just drop back in and show you that, rather than trying to work around the corner. When it's a more defined corner, you're better off kind of making it an actual angle. So just let's pull these beads down towards, so I know where this wants to be, like so, and pull through. And then I can come through, and like I said before, when we were this is kind of more of an edge, so I want to make sure I bring my needle up more towards that edge, and that will pull those beads out and create that curve for me. So I'm just going to come through those last few beads, and you can see that's created that slight curve for me, and I know I've got a nice definite angle, so we've got a different kind of direction. So just to give it more definition, so let's just continue up towards the baseline. So let those drop down and through. And making sure we come through on the edge so that we can sort of follow that line and create that little bit, so it's kind of just curving as we go, so we're just pushing that in the right direction that we need it. So now we're just going to add those last few beads. So I'm thinking about 5 beads, but we will always drop them down first. Yeah, that measures in fine, and then come through at the bottom there. Okay, so I'm just going to come through and tag that middle part in and through, and then again, now I've finished this wing, because I want to make sure my lines are very well done and very well finished off, and I'm just going to bring my thread through all of my beads, so just making sure you don't miss any, and come back through all of those beads. And then at this point, when we get down to this corner, we can continue because we have got 2 different directions, so the flow is not going to make it kind of turn around the corner. So now I can come up in this direction. As long as I don't pull it too tight, that angle will stay nice and true for me. So I'm just going to pull that through, and you can see I've still got that nice angle in there. I'm just going to pull that tail out of the way a little bit, and then I can pop my thread through all of these beads and just chasing it round. I know it does seem like a pain kind of coming through back through everything, but it does create a really nice finish on all your pieces, and extra security as well, because it's a piece that's going to get a lot of wear. So when you've got a brooch, you do tend to touch it a lot, it tends to be kind of front and centre. So yeah, making sure that your piece is well made and of as excellent quality as you can make it. And following this all the way through. It's all these little things like this that's just going to add to the longevity of your piece of jewellery. So we're almost back through and back towards that body. Now I can see that there is a tiny little gap just before the body, so I'm just going to add 1 extra bead in there. There we go, and that's finished there. So I've come all the way around, and now we've got this nice space to fill in. Okay, so you will, instead of just finishing here, you will continue and start adding this one, so you've got all your wings lined out so you know exactly where you're going, but we're just going to continue on this one for now. So as you can see, I kind of went with this kind of design where you don't actually have to count beads, it's just going by eye and working on your design and working out where you want your colours to be, but kind of all splaying out from the centre of the butterfly, and looking at different butterflies in books and things. A lot of these butterflies have these kind of designs that come out. I know I kind of did this one where it's kind of more the circles and lines and things, but just for a little bit of difference I decided to go with this kind of more natural looking design. So we're going to start adding the black rose first, and then we'll start filling in and working out towards the edge of the wings. So we're going to go in. Now I don't want my first black row to be right next to the edge because I want the definition of that edge if possible. So I'm going to just leave a little gap and then come through sort of a few millimeters away from the actual edge of the wing, and then it's just a matter of adding as many as you want, like so, and then it's just bringing those in the direction that we want them to go. So I'm bringing that in this direction, and don't forget we don't want them all to be perfectly straight, we want them to kind of mingle with each other as well, so we get a more natural look. So bringing my through again, always tagging in the middle, don't leave them as kind of a long piece, so tagging that in the middle and then pushing through. So we're going to add all these little black pieces first, so I'm going to leave a gap, just a small gap, because we're going to be using bugles on the next one, so we don't want huge gaps or anything, and then adding my next lot of black beads and pushing them down. So it's going to be a kind of adding this row, and then it's filling the gaps and getting a little bit longer each time for each of these. So I'm going to continue just adding these black pieces, and then we'll move on to the bugle beads and I will come back to you at that point. So you can see I've added these black beads, and I've tried not to be too kind of regular. We don't want just lines going in a straight line, we want to kind of go a little bit irregular so that it looks more natural. So once we've done this, what I've done is I've come up in between one of these gaps, so my thread is about here, and this time I'm going to add these bugle beads. So I'm just going to add a couple to this little section here, and what this is going to do, it's going to fill that gap but keep it quite nice and dark looking because of the colour, but it's also going to add this amazing kind of little bit of sparkle into it. There we go, and then I can push my needle through so that I know I'm in the right spot. So, and it's just a matter of filling those little gaps up. So that one's got that little bit of an angle inside. Because I've just added two, I don't feel like I need to come through in between there. And I'm going to come up in between the next gap. This time I'm going to add 3 and push those down. So just making sure you push them right down and then come through where you need to come through. So around about there. Now I find the bugles, if you're just adding 2 or 3, we don't need to do that kind of come up in between. They will sit quite nicely because they're more straighter anyway. So, and making sure that you come up in between so that we're kind of mingling all these layers of colours together. So come up in between the next set of black beads. So I'm going to add 3. I'm going to add 4 this time just to take it that bit further. Try to be a kind of a little bit more irregular as you're adding them. So pushing those down and just splaying them out as you go, just so that we create that nice irregular pattern. So you can see those adding there. So I'm going to continue to add those, and then we'll add a little bit of the next lot, and then we'll move on to creating the backing, because from there you will know exactly how to go on and add more beads. So I've finished adding all those bugle beads, so you can see the kind of texture that we've got there. You can see they're kind of all spidering off. And now I've just come up and I've come through some of the black beads. So I'm just kind of exiting the end of that row of black beads. So now I'm going to do, it's all the same kind of technique, and we're just going to just keep swapping colours. So I'm going to add some of my turquoise coloured beads and pop those in there. And what I want to do is I just want to bring those down so they're coming straight off the end of those black beads, and then when my next row in, my golds are going to go either side of those. So, and it's just a kind of a case of mingling them in together little bit by little bit and adding each row and working out what colours you want where. So I've added the black and then the bugle beads and then this turquoise and then the gold, and then I went back to black. So, and it's just a case of just continuing on until you've filled up all those gaps. And the more irregular you are, try not to be too kind of uniform in the way that you add your colours, the more natural your butterfly will look. So I'm just going to show you the finished, well, the front finished piece, so you can see there. And it's just kind of a matter of splaying them out and try not to make them too straight. You see some of mine are kind of bent and they go different, slightly different angles to each other, and I think that makes it look far more natural. Okay, so, and if you wanted to take some of your bugle beads further up, some of these I've taken the bugle beads a little bit further up, if I just to add that extra little bit of glamour to it as well. Okay, so I'm just going to move everything out of the way, and we're just going to show you how to attach the brooch pin and to attach the backing. So we're going to be looking at how to attach the backing. So this is the pre-cut piece that I made earlier, it's not attached yet, and we've got the brooch pin. So we want to place the brooch pin where we want it to be and just kind of hold it in the middle there. Now what I want to do is just make a little mark, so just using a pen, just make a little mark at either side where the kind of this kind of connector bit is and where the kind of hinge is. So just making sure you've got a couple of marks there. Okay, so now I've got those marks on there, I know that is where I want my little snip to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this. Okay, so just fold it, and I'm just going to make a little snip in between those marks at either side. So here and here, like so. And now what I can do is I can pop this inside here. So I can do this by popping the pin part through one side, like so, and wiggling that through that little hole that we made, and then this side through here. So now I can just make sure that's just not quite laying as flat as I want it to. Then just pop a little nick in the fabric there, that's better. So now I'm happy with how that is laying. So what I would do now at this point is just add a couple of stitches, and then we just mean a couple of stitches because most of this is going to be glued in place. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. I'm just going to bring my thread, so I've still got my thread attached here, I'm just going to bring it to around about this central section here. Okay, until I feel like I'm kind of in the right spot that I need to be in. And then I'm going to pop on here, so I think I'm in the right place, and I'm going to come up through this kind of middle hole here. So we're just going to add a couple of stitches, it's not going to be lots, so I'm just going to come up through that hole, pop everything down, make sure everything's positioned where we want it to be. Just as a little hint, what I would do is close the pin because I will probably stab myself on that. So just close that pin and close that there. Okay, so my threads come through that hole in the centre there. This might be a little bit difficult for you to see, and then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a stitch just across and hold everything together. So you might be able to see this stitch afterwards, but don't worry, it's only one little stitch or so. And then I'm going to do the same again, so I'm going to try and come up through, so just making sure that you're looking at the other side, so making sure that you're taking attention to where it's coming through on the opposite side too, and then you can come up through and add another little stitch in. Now if you have got a grey thread, which I think Wildfire do a lovely grey thread. That is going to disappear even more so, but don't worry about it because it is only a stitch and it's on the back, like so. So I've just kind of anchored it there, it's just got that stitch, and if you wanted to you could add a couple of stitches to the other side too, where we've got them other holes. Okay, so once you've got those stitches in place, so you can see my few stitches there, it's probably not as tidy as I would normally do, but you can see on, well, this one's actually a black backing. You can add them this way as well, you don't have to do this through the fabric one, but you can see the stitches on that one there as well. Let's see those. Yeah, so it's just a few stitches, but it's just to hold a little bit of extra security. And then what I would do with is just add a little bit of glue. It's just a little bit of extra security. So this is an E6000 glue, but you can add any sort of fabric glue, and it's just a little bit, not right up to the edges, just to kind of to add to those wings, those wing areas and the edges, and this will just help everything stay in place, especially whilst you're actually sewing this in. Just down there, but try not to get too close to the edges. So that will be enough just to kind of keep that in place. And what I would do is let that dry for a good kind of hour or so, just to make sure. Oops, I've got some glue on the front there, don't worry. Right, so what it would do is, like I say, let that dry for a little while, but I'm just going to continue on just to show you how to add this backing. So we've got everything in place, it's not going to move. If you didn't want to add that glue, you can do, but just be careful that it's not moving, it's not a problem. So what I want to do is I just want to add a stitch. So my thread's coming out from the edge of the backing at the moment, so the black fabric. I'm just going to add a stitch, so I'm coming through the backing and then through the ultra suede. Okay, it's just so that I'm in the right position to start adding some beads. So I'm going to edge this with some beads. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pick up a size 11. So I've picked up a size 11, and then I'm going to come through just right next to where my first stitch was, through the backing, through the ultra suede, just as I just did. And I'm going to pull that in, and then I'm going to come through the bead I just added. So I'm coming through that bead. Okay, now I'm going to pick up another size 11, and I'm going to come through the backing, through the ultra suede, and through that bead. Now your first couple will sit a little bit higgledy-piggledy, it's just because they haven't got anything else to support them on the other side. Don't worry about that. And then we're going to pick up another bead, and we're just going to continue this all the way around. So bead, then through the backing, through the ultra suede towards yourself, and then through the bead. So making sure you come through that bead every single time, and just every so often you might want to just kind of put it down, hold that bead and just give that a little tug, and it will help them sit in place. But this is another one that once we've got all these beads in, what we're going to do is we're going to run a piece of thread all the way through and straighten them all up. So don't worry if they do sit a little bit higgledy-piggledy. The closer together you can get them, the better. It is time consuming, but it will give you a beautiful result at the end. So just making sure you're not kind of coming too far into the fabric, because we don't want to be able to see those stitches too much. Making sure it doesn't loop around any of your beads, and just keep working on this until you get all the way around. And then, like I said, just run a single thread through all these edge beads all the way around, and that will give you a really nice finish to your piece. And then your piece will actually be complete and ready to wear. Don't forget to make sure you've waited for that glue to dry if you've used glue. And I'm just going to do a few more just so you can see this edging, how it looks on the finished piece, and then you'll be able to see the finished piece in the studio. Add one more. Okay, so you will have a nice beaded edge like so all the way around the piece, and your piece will be ready to wear. So just make sure also that you're checking like this little bit here. I might need to trim that as I come along, but leave it until you get there because sometimes things do slip. So just yeah, just work away, making sure you're checking, just keep turning it over and checking everything's fine and in place, and you will get a nice beaded edge like so. So I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration, and I will see you again very soon. And don't forget, there is 2 colourways to this kit. I think they're both absolutely beautiful, especially the sequins. I think the sequins are the favourite in this colour for me, and I love the dark and the bright colours from this one. So you've got the kind of the best of both worlds with these amazing kits. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.